This is not going to be a long video because frankly, this is cut and dry. New Hire Seir is a pretty simple character to critique, but I am going to take the time to explain in some detail why she is not worth investing into. Because I know some people are looking at that 99 stack cap and going, wow, she's so broken. First, good luck reaching 99 stacks in any content. Second, even hitting 5 can be a challenge. And I would say that's the bare minimum since Levia and Rafina gives you that much for free. So let's just get the obvious out of the way. Tanks are just in a bad state. This is a one-turn sweep game. We want to be able to kill the enemy within the first turn. If you go beyond the second turn, your roster is either bad or you're doing a boss fight. On top of that, enemies deal so much damage nowadays that it's really hard to not just die in one hit. Tanks are able to survive multiple hits, but oftentimes those require mitigation buffs to do so, or at least have some really excellent gear. Now, Seir can survive a lot of hits, but that does require mitigation. And the main issue with the new Hire costume is that it has no mitigation whatsoever. So if you're fighting anything in general PvE content, it can be very, very difficult to survive those attacks in the first place. But honestly, the real thing that neuters tanks in PvE content is buff removal. For some reason, Neowiz really wants people to die whenever you get hit. So in order for you to not mitigate anything, they put buff removal on a lot of units. And if you don't have to worry about buff removal, they often have fixed damage, which cuts through your defense in your gear. And overall, there's just so much going on in PvE content that is against tanks in general that new Hire Seir is not going to be able to perform her job well. So really, Seir's only real chance of viability is in fee hunts and guild raids. Now, this is largely going to depend on the fight. Obviously, for this fiend hunt coming up, she's going to work fine because she's tailor-made for it. But when we go beyond that, the track record doesn't look good. Fiend hunts often come with turns where they just do buffs. Fiend hunts also sometimes do a low amount of hits, like 4 or 5, which isn't nearly enough to be worth it. Bosses do sometimes come with insta kills, and once again, bosses do sometimes have buff removal. So even in her best case scenario, she is still incredibly niche, and the stars had to align in order for her to work correctly. The big thing is just that tanks aren't just meta anywhere except PvP. And unironically, that's where Seir has the best chance at. Now, I say this all the time, but I do not rank PvP because I am not good at it. So let's move on. But okay, let's say you do want to make Seir work no matter what. How do you go about that? First, you have to accept that you're just not going to play the game optimally. You have to settle for turn 3 or longer. Second, Seir needs to have 2 costumes. Her first costume is her base, with her potentials unlocked because that allows you to taunt. And then you need to unlock potentials for the new Hire costume. This is because she has to taunt first. Or, if you want to start with new Hire first, the stars have to align for everything to work out. Second, you have to make sure that Seir can survive. Everything that's coming towards her, like I said before, hits very hard, so this can be hard to do. And the last thing is, if you're going to do the taunt strategy, that means you're using the base costume first, and then you hire Seir. That means the buff from new Hire Seir is not going to be active until turn 5. At that point, I would say you're taking way too long to kill enemies, and you're wasting a lot of time. Now, what if you just don't have the optimal team to turn 1 sweep anyways? This can be where Seir can actually work out. Since there will be enemies left over, you can place Seir at a point where she actually can tank the stragglers, so that the rest of the team won't be taking any damage. Now the question is, would you rather use Seir, or would you rather have someone who can buff turn 1 and is also able to tank because, you know, there are units who can do that. Beach, Angel Teresa, and Diana. Both of them are tanky characters. They just don't have tank mitigation. But with the way how they're built, they have so much HP and defense that they actually can survive a number of hits. In fact, I use Teresa all the time to tank hits. She's just really good at that. And then you get into the actual tank characters, which is Sylvia and Leckless. Both are able to tank while also able to do counterattacks, which allows them to mow down enemies during enemy phase. And on top of that, they have mitigation built into their kit as well. So no matter how much you slice it, even in her own role, Seir is just not even close to being one of the best. So all you really want from Seir is her buffs. But as I keep saying, she's just not going to be as viable as the ones who can just do a straightforward buff from turn 1. There's just so much going against her in practicality that the numbers she can potentially provide is just not worth pursuing. And that does suck because I do love tank characters. Tanking is my favorite role in any RPG. So I actually do want Seir to work here, but this is a game where that archetype is not going to do well. So I can't in good conscience recommend her to just about anyone. I wouldn't even recommend going anywhere beyond +0, to be completely honest. Now, again, for this Fiend Hunt, she is going to be useful because the current Fiend Hunt does up to 40 hits. So that's when her buff actually will work out quite well. And if you're that into ranking, then she is probably a must pull for you. But for everyone else, no. Neois has been making improvements lately, so hopefully they'll mix up the formula to allow tanks to have more time to shine. I would love to eat my words on this one.